All right, so for ease, there are going to be some live links in this presentation. So we did include a bit.ly. So if you want to write that down, then you would have a copy of this presentation for you to use after this. So if you want to go ahead and just take a moment and write that down, then you'll have access to all the resources that we're going to share today. All right, and again, just for introductions, my name is Jessa Waterhouse. I am a resource specialist with the Capital District RBERN, and I'm here with my colleague, Kathy.
Good afternoon, I am Kathy Lowell. I'm the Assistant Director of the Hudson Valley RBERN.
So we'll just go ahead and start off.
So on the left side of the screen is information that was shared during the reopening guidance in July. Just letting districts know that they have a responsibility to use progress monitoring tools in the absence of the NYSED-OBEWL in order to determine the how to best support students instructionally. And we want to consider all 4 modalities of speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And then in the comprehensive ELL education plan, which districts have to complete and submit no later than December 15th, there is, amongst other questions, many of them this year are just assurance checkoff questions, but one of the questions that's a narrative in the SEEP is about progress monitoring tools. And it's listed here. What progress monitoring tools are being used to track the progress of ELLs in your district? And then how is your district using data gathered through the progress monitoring tool to inform decisions about appropriate levels of at-risk intervention or advanced course opportunities? And then just a reminder that districts must make the SEEP available upon review. There should be a copy in the district main office and in each school's central office. And then every administrator in the district must review the SEEP, the Comprehensive ELL Education Plan. Those are usually submitted by the administrator or by the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. Okay, our next slide. And then just a quick definition of progress monitoring. Many of you are familiar with progress monitoring that happens as part of the MTSS or RTI model, in which we take a look especially at struggling students and how to support them. Progress monitoring just has the same definition, but the purpose of progress monitoring for ELLs currently is to determine proficiency in each of the 4 modalities in order to support students' growth in both language and in their content areas. But in general, this is a progress monitoring is to assess students' academic performance, quantify their rate of improvement or responsiveness to instruction, and then to
services. Michelle speaking. Michelle, it's Dolly. How are you?
Somebody's got to mute.
I was wondering. Yes,
Dolly, you need to mute. Thank you. And then to evaluate the effectiveness of instruction, and then for the progress monitoring of English language learners, this would be on an individual basis. We could go ahead to the next slide. We have to remember that the progress monitoring cannot exit a student or reduce the ENL services, the units of study. We know the exit status is tied directly to the NYSED-OBEWL. We are measuring language proficiency, and ENL progress monitoring is the responsibility of all teachers. And just a reminder about the blueprint for English language learner and multilingual learner success. The very first principle is that all teachers are teachers of ELLs and MLLs. That ties right back to that.
So the next slide we're going to show you kind of introduces the MLS screener. Just as a tool for progress monitoring, this is available now, currently, yay. It's originally, or its main intent is to identify SIFE students. If this is something you are interested in implementing in your district, I recommend reaching out to your local RBERN and they can help you get all the information required to use this. It can be used as districts to conduct a general literacy screening for newly identified ELLs, even if they are not considered SIFE. There is an option, just details a little bit. They're semi-adaptive, and it's intended to also measure the literacy level of students in their home language, and it is semi-adaptive. It determines the student's baseline in home language, and it goes from grades 3 through 9 is what it's assessing. If you are deciding to use this for progress monitoring, make sure that when you are registering the student, when you are setting up for the exam, make sure that you select as an initial literacy screener, so that the information that's being collected from the MLS can decipher between what it's being used for SIFE and then what it's being used for our initial literacy. Some other tools that can be used or resources that can be used to develop some internal progress monitoring tools can be the NYSED-OBEWL webinets, talks about what the test is measuring, as well as the targets of measure, the performance level descriptions, different types of rubrics for the exam, as well as sample items, as well as the bilingual progressions. And we're actually going to show you some samples of what you could do with the PLDs, or the performance level descriptions, as well as the targets of measure. This is also a checklist. So if you're considering making your own tools internally for your district, this is a checklist that the state has shared with us that can be used to decide whether or not the tool is appropriate for your progress monitoring needs. And again, if you have the bit.ly for this, and at the end of this presentation, I will put the link for the bit.ly into the chat, so you can click on that if you did not see it before. But all of these resources, this one included, will have a live link that you can click to if you would like to access it.
Jessa, somebody did put the bit.ly in the chat too.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Here are some progress monitoring tools that are available. The SOLOR, which is the Student Oral and Written Language Observation Running Record, is a tool that was put together by a partner of ours, the ED Consortium. And currently the speaking and the listening part of that is available. The writing part is in development. The tool is available in English right now, but ED Consortium is also developing it in Spanish. That is available at no cost. Also, the MLS is available at no cost. The others that are listed in this chart are commercially available, so districts would have to pay for them if they were interested in it. Lost Links and Pearson Tell. Some of our districts, including some of our Big Five, are using Lost Links, and there are some other districts in the Hudson Valley region that are using the Pearson Tell. TOEFL also has some assessments available for proficiency. They are broken up by grade level. The primary one, though, they listed as starting at age 8. They don't have anything younger than that. And then the junior, and then the TOEFL ITP is often used in high school with other world languages, but they do have an English language one as well. But those are certainly something you would have to pay for. And then the Center for Applied Linguistics has one also. It's typically used in Latin America. I'm not familiar with anybody using it, in New York State, but if you are, let me know. Another one that we could add to this list is the Woodcock Munoz, which is available as well. It assesses proficiency in English and in Spanish. And there are some additional resources on the bottom. We have the Colorín Colorado article, Helping ELLs Succeed with an MTSS System. And the reason why that's linked here is because of the progress monitoring aspect of the MTSS, and that considers the needs of ELLs. And then also Short and Echevarria, I'm not sure if Vote's part of this one, but our friends from Pearson with our SIOP, the Response to Intervention in English Language Learners book is a really great resource, just in general when ELLs are struggling, but there's some great detail in there about progress monitoring for ELLs and some special considerations for ELLs. And there's the cover of that book.
So the next couple slides, we're just going to share some sample organizers or progress monitoring tools that we have developed and willing to share with everyone. So the first one here is called a student profile. So some of the districts that we work with use these for their students to share with their content area teachers or their classroom teachers, so that they have more information on their ENL student. And this also includes student indicators, modification levels, and ideas for scaffolding for each one of the students. What we like about these is that you can update them frequently for the different types of scaffolds you might use for the students. And then just to take a closer look at the student indicators, we have reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And again, the link for this is in the presentation. So if this is something that you're interested in to use for your district, feel free to make a copy, and then you can edit as well for whatever fits your district best. But we also have language expectations, vocab targets, so you can make these specific to each individual student about what their goals are, so that you can monitor how they are achieving those goals and what they need to achieve those goals, as well as language, vocabulary, their support goal, and their reading goal. So it's a nice way to keep all that information in one place to help, again, keep an eye on how your students are doing. And this goes again for the ENL teacher as well as the classroom teacher too. So other things that we have done, these are just made so far for the primary grades or the grades K through 5, but these were made with the targets of measure and the PLDs from the NYSED-OBEWL. So what they do is they break down each one of the anchors. So if you're using this as, again, a progress monitoring tool for each one, it also breaks down the entering, emerging, and transitioning levels. So again, this is something that can be easy to give to content area teachers as well as used by the ENL. They are made for standalone. However, they could be adapted easily for an integrated setting depending on the needs of your students. And again, because they're set up this way, it would be an easy task to do this for the upper grades as well, because they're done by grade bands that are the same as the NYSED-OBEWL grade bands. Then we also have some rubrics, and these are again by the grade bands for the NYSED-OBEWL, and they show the PLD, what they're expected at each one of those levels, as well as what it might look like for speaking, writing, and listening. So it helps focus again on what your goals are for that student and where they are proficiency-wise. And also just to tie this in, we also wanted to share some of the information that some of our colleagues created for progress monitoring in this past summer. They put together this really great infographic that we wanted to tie in when you're thinking about considerations for progress monitoring, specifically with equity in mind when we're thinking about grading. Kathy, did you have anything else to add to this one?
I was just going to say Audrey is here if she wants to unmute and share. Audrey and Rebecca, I know, shared this at a July meeting with the L leadership, but there's a chance that not everybody may have been there.
Yes,
Audrey?
I'm here. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
Yeah, this is the infographic that's been made available, and it's actually on the L website. Can be posted up for someone's not on mute. Okay, for everyone to see, and along with the presentation that we provided in July as well. During the presentation, we offered 4 essential questions that were asked actually to meet our objective of the entire presentation, which is to progress monitor while having equity in mind for all of our students. And these were the 4 essential questions that we presented during that presentation. What are some of the best practices for providing feedback to Ls? How can teachers monitor students' progress with equity in mind? What data options might students consider or schools consider to assess student learning? And how can teachers assess students' learning while keeping the whole child in mind? And when we ask these 4 essential questions, these questions actually in and of itself can be presentations of their own. So what we provided was just a general overview for the to answer the 4 essential questions. And with the progress monitoring with equity in mind, we wanted to list some things that would be helpful where we have the students in mind throughout the whole process. And some of it can include tiered questions, tiered supports, scaffold chunking, define tier 2 and 3 vocabulary, and rubrics, culturally relevant units of study as well. Okay, and there are different categories that we take into account when we are assessing students, and some of them are listed there: homework, classwork, assessments, participation, behavior, just to name a few. But what we wanted to point out with this is seeing it through the lens of an English language learner and how these different categories can directly impact English language learners. For example, homeworks, making sure that the homework is scaffolded and can help the students, help support the students and not hurt them. Same with assessments, classwork.
So that was the basis of what we were sharing today. You know, we kind of showed you some ideas for tools that you could do for your own progress monitoring, some things that you could, if you wanted something more formalized, some ideas for those. But again, you know, anytime you have a question that comes up about using progress monitoring for your L's, reach out to your local RBERN and they are more than willing to meet with you and support you in whatever progress monitoring you're doing, or if there's anything else that you need support with.
So Jessa and Kathy, we do have some questions. If you're done with your presentation, we have some time if you'd like to address some of them.
Sure. I'm just
Okay.
gonna stop share. Okay.
So just so everyone is aware, we did have someone very nicely put in the bit.ly link for this, so you can find that right in the chat. And then let's see, let's go to our, so Janet wants to know, does the progress monitoring assessment have to hit yes on all areas on the checklist?
Right, and I replied, and just so that everybody can see my response is that the checklist is used as a guide, and the more areas that you can actually say that your progress monitoring tools meet would certainly lead to more information for you about the child's level of proficiency.
Okay, thank
So it's
you.
a guide. Mm-hmm.
Stephanie had a question. Kathy and Jess, I don't know if this is for you or if this is better handled by Ross or Elisa. She says, going forward, will the NYSED be providing us with the more detailed type of data that the progress monitoring tool is required to provide?
Well, as the former print, I can take one. I'll pass it over and I'll tag you it, Ross, after I share thoughts. But that's a great question. As well with needing more information from the NYSED, I have to tell you, we have an amazing team, strategic team in place right now. Some of you that are on this call are part of that amazing team, actually. And we're going to start taking a deeper look into the NYSED, to be or not to be, and how else is it that we're going to work with the NYSED so that it provides us the information that we need for the children. So more to come. It's slow, but it's steady. So we should know a little bit more probably after January. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to relegate the question from Priscilla on the NYSED to that future meeting when we have more information to share as well. So I appreciate that. So that, I believe, is the end of the questions that are on the chat. Are there any additional questions that people wanted to raise at this time?
I know that Marissa was just commenting on how older students in particular have gotten really savvy with using, like, doing work in their primary language and then using translation resources to create the product that they need to turn into teachers, not really creating in the target language, which I think is an interesting dilemma. We all know the value of the use of home language, but we also know that we need to help students become proficient in English as well as continue to develop in their home language. And then there's some suggestions in there as well. Performance, project-based learning is one of the suggestions in here, and we've got work going forward in that area as well.
Well, I want to thank both of our presenters, Kathy Lowell and Jessa Waterhouse. I would encourage you, if you are so inclined, to use your reactions on the Zoom menu. If you click on this little button, it allows you to give them a little clap, a thumbs up, a heart, a celebratory confetti boost, whatever you would like, and just give them some feedback on that. And as we're doing that, I wanted to transition back to our PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to introduce two colleagues of mine that are going to be presenting on the seal of biliteracy. So let me share my screen with you right here. So let me start with David Mumper, who is from the Hudson Valley RBERN, and Shawnna Sweet, who is from the Midwest RBERN at Monroe 2 BOCES. So we have the presentation set for you. David and Shawnna, are you all set to begin?
Yeah, I think so.
Wonderful. Okay, and actually I'm beginning with this one if I remember how we divided the slides, correct? But we have everything in front of you. So we wanted to give you a brief overview of the seal of biliteracy. And yes, the question of the hour is, can we do the seal of biliteracy under COVID? And the answer is absolutely. Not only is it a great way to motivate our students by getting an award, but we have various ways in which we have allowed people special dispensations under COVID to be able to make this happen. So let's start with the seal is an award that's given by a school that formally recognizes students who've attained a high level of proficiency in 2 or more world languages, and one of them must be English, and they must do this by high school graduation. OBEWL provides at no charge the actual seal sticker for the diplomas and a medallion for every seal earner to wear at graduation. Last year was the first year of doing that. Let's talk a little bit about how New York schools did in 2019-20. We had more students in New York State earn the seal than in any prior year, which is a feat in and of itself. But considering that this happened when schools were closed from March until June, it's absolutely phenomenal. We had 4,609 students complete the seal. You see the gender breakdown there as well. We had 80 students earn the seal in 2 world languages in addition to English, and an amazing 3 students who earn the seal in 3 world languages in addition to English. When students do that, they have to earn 3 points in every language. You can also see across the middle bottom there, the breakdown by L status. So you can see that we're still getting a relatively low number of English language learners who are pursuing or completing the seal. We have a very healthy former or ever L subsection who's earning the seal. And the bulk of our students that are earning this tend to be our never Ls, those students who are world language students. So we're really ramping up this year. We collected some additional data to find out perhaps why our Ls are not earning the seal in kind of the same numbers for which they are proportionate in the population. And we'll be sending that out to you in terms of our annual report soon. We had 294 schools, up from 228 last year. And students earned the seal in 59 different languages, which is up from 47 last year. Of particular note, we had the very first New York State Seal of Biliteracy awarded in an indigenous language, which was Tuscarora this past year, and that was from the Niagara Wheatfield School District. You can see that we have schools from every region of New York that offer this seal, and we're looking to increase that for every region. And Shawnna, you're going to stop me if I accidentally step over here. In terms of who's doing this slide. I believe this is mine, but let me know if it's not.
You're good.
Students who can earn the seal include our Ls, our former or ever Ls, as well as never Ls whose home language is English, those kids who take a world language pathway, and never else whose home language is other than English, such as heritage language students. The bottom line is we want you to know that this is a way to honor and encourage our English language learners and our world language students to develop this biliteracy, and that all world languages qualify: sign language, Latin, indigenous language, every world language. The SEAL benefits students in a variety of ways, including encouraging the study of language, valuing language diversity, but also letting employers and universities know that these are highly qualified candidates. It honors their multiple cultures and languages, but it also, and here's for all the administrators in the group, it also positively contributes to the district's accountability score for ESSA, because for every student that earns the SEAL, you multiply that by 2 before you put it in that ESSA formula. Students can complete the SEAL by doing 2 things: completing all requirements for graduating with a New York State Regents diploma, and demonstrating proficiency in English and another language by earning 3 points. And points can be earned from coursework, exams, transcripts, and culminating projects, among other things. We wanted to mention to you today that we have made some COVID-19 allowances to make sure that students are not negatively impacted relative to earning the SEAL while they may be on hybrid or remote instruction. So you all know that we issued exemptions from the canceled June 2020 ELA exam, and that those students who were exempted from that exam currently have 1 point towards criterion 1A, so long as they got credit for the course. By the same token, our L's who were not able to take the 2020 NYSED-OBEWL exam, if they scored at transitioning or better on the 2019 NYSED-OBEWL and they earned credit last year for their E&L course, they also already have 1 point, but now towards criterion 1B. We are developing additional guidance on the SEAL to supplement the announcement of the cancellation of the January 2021 exams, and that will be forthcoming. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Shawnna to help us out talking about resources available.
Yes, and I'm glad to do so. Candy, are you going to be able to click on some of the websites, or?
Yes, you let me know where you want me to click.
Yeah, I'll leave that part up to you. So as I'm talking, you're welcome to click on any of the links. So welcome everyone. I'm Shawnna Sweet from Midwest RBERN. I'm really excited to be sharing some of these resources because they have been a long time coming. The first resource, and first of all, we want everyone to know that, for those of you who offer the Seal of Biliteracy, or if you've never offered it before, there are lots of resources. And the great thing is that we've been working together across the state to be able to collaborate and share resources. So if it's something that's new to you and you're not really quite sure, just know that there's a lot that's out there and so many people willing to help. So I'm just going to share a little glimpse of the help and the resources that's available for you. So the first place to start is really the OBEWL website. On the OBE website, there's a whole page that's dedicated to the Seal of Biliteracy. All of the most helpful information to begin with is there. So, the forms that you need, the handbook, some questions, some contact information, all of that is right there. So honestly, that page is bookmarked for me. It's always the first place I go just to make sure that I'm getting the most up-to-date resources and information. Then there's the Seal of Biliteracy handbook. And I always recommend when there's a new Seal of Biliteracy committee, start with the handbook. There's a lot of questions that you might have if you're just starting out, or if you're, a veteran for the Seal of Biliteracy. And I know the handbook is updated every year, even just ever so slightly. So I always recommend that your Seal of Biliteracy committee, administrators, people who are working on it, go ahead and read the handbook first, and then just review it every year to see, what you need for updates. One thing I wanted to share in the handbook that a lot of people aren't aware of, and Candy, I'm wondering if you can show the table of contents, because there is a glossary in the Seal of Biliteracy handbook. And I know for myself, coming from, an ESL background, not a world language background, there was a lot of terms that I didn't quite know right off the bat. So that glossary is really handy. I think it's at the very end of the book. And vice versa. If you're coming from a world language background or an administrator background, that could be really helpful. So the handbook is a great place to start. And another very exciting resource that's coming out as we speak, basically, is the New York State Seal of Biliteracy Guidance Toolkit. This toolkit has been in development. Oh, we might need to update that because it was just posted to the NYSED website this week.
Yeah, I'll
So
get it. Keep
yeah,
talking.
we'll update that. So the Seal of Literacy Toolkit has really been multiple years of work and a lot of time in the making. So the toolkit is broken down chronologically for a school or district to be able to roll out or improve your Seal of Biliteracy program. So there are 7 modules. They range from getting started, planning to implement the Seal of Biliteracy, takes you through the process of designing culminating projects, monitoring student progress, preparing for panel presentations, celebrating the Seal of Biliteracy, and wrapping up your program. In each module comes with an agenda as well as a slideshow where all of the materials and resources are all linked right within the toolkit. So everything that you need to be able to roll out or to, like I said, even to boost your program is there. The great thing about the modules is that you can do them with your Seal of Biliteracy committee. We have some narrated slides, so it's something that you can play or people can watch individually, and they're there for you. Like I said, one of the best things about the toolkit is that all of the modules have examples from school districts around the state. So as we've been developing, and my colleague Maria Fenton from Mid-State RBERN, shout out to Maria, Candy Black and myself have been working on these for the past 2 years. So they've gone through several review processes and they've been, like I said, a long time in the making, but I'm really proud to share them. So, that was the toolkit. And if you have any questions, we'd be glad to take those. Another resource we want to share is the RBERNs. So myself being an RBERN specialist, we know that each RBERN has somebody in the office who helps to implement the Seal of Biliteracy. So, if you have general questions about the seal, always go to your local RBERN specialist so they can, support you with that. And also, if you're looking for information about, in your region, perhaps who else offers the Seal of Biliteracy, or you want to connect with somebody else, definitely connect with your RBERN and they can support you with that. So that is the RBERN On Demand website, which I know that we've shared a few times. I also just want to share local collaboratives. So for myself in the Midwest region, we have meetings once a month where local schools can come together and share resources, ask questions, and collaborate on the Seal of Biliteracy. So actually this year we're going through the modules together. We piloted the modules last year. But again, since the very beginning, there's been this core group of districts that have worked on all of these resources together. So this is just one example of a collaborative in which, a lot of districts in our region get together and work on the seal. I know Mid-State has a collaborative. New York City, has some of their own processes and procedures. So again, just making sure that you're connecting with your RBERNs if you want to be able to work with other schools and districts, because as we know, we have some very large districts, but we also have some very small districts that don't have the manpower that some of the larger districts do. So important to connect and make sure, you're doing that because there's people available to help. And I'm trying to see what's next. That does not have a hyperlink, but again, going back to the idea of collaboration and RBERNs, we have at this point veteran schools who've been already offering the seal for a few years. So it might be a great idea to reach out to a neighboring school or a neighboring district, to set up a mentoring situation. Or, if you're on this meeting, and we know that many of these schools and districts in this meeting today are already offering the seal. So if you're willing to mentor a school, perhaps set up a time to talk with, administrator or a teacher from another district, let us know, and we can help make those connections. And I think there's just a couple more resources if we can. So one thing that we did want to note was the Seal of Biliteracy Task Force. This is a statewide task force that has been meeting. Last year was the first year that we started meeting, had to move a lot of our meetings virtually, and, really COVID became the center for a while. But the Seal of Biliteracy Task Force, the main charge is to make sure that we're creating equitable pathways for the Seal of Biliteracy, so that those home language students, or perhaps the students who speak lower incidence languages that aren't offered in the schools, so those former ELLs, those heritage speakers and current ELLs, are able to earn the seal at the highest possible rate. So that's one of the main charges of the Seal of Biliteracy Task Force. But again, there are several different projects that we're working on. One of the projects that came out of the Seal of Biliteracy Task Force is this support initiative. So we have a subgroup that's working on recruiting panel members. Those of you who are familiar with the Seal of Biliteracy might know that one of the beauties, if you will, of the Seal of Biliteracy is for students to be able to present, or present their culminating project to a panel of people in the community. So we know that there are interpreter agencies, there are of course teachers of world languages, but we've created this panel member volunteer form in order for community members to really be able to take part in the Seal of Biliteracy presentation. So we do have a whole bunch of languages and people who have already volunteered across the state to sit on a Seal of Biliteracy panel. We have language represented such as American Sign Language, Chinese, we have Farsi, Japanese, Persian, and the list goes on. But we're really hoping to be able to utilize this form a little bit more within this school year to make sure that we're doing that. And one additional benefit of this volunteer form is connecting with the colleges. And at least for myself locally, I sent the form to a lot of the world language professors at colleges because I think it's really important that the people in higher education have an understanding of, the seal and, what kind of level of language students bring to the table when they enter college. And I think we're have only one more resource to share, which is the national website. So, sealofbiliteracy.org is sponsored by Velasquez Press. They have some really great resources. They do have several books and dictionaries available for purchase, but this sealofbiliteracy.org website is a great place just to look at, what are people doing across the United States. So I always recommend that. And the people at Velasquez are really helpful as well. So I think that's it for my section. I'm going to bring in my colleague, David.
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
First of all, I joined a little later. I had a really exciting meeting actually that involved the seal. And I just want to say hi. There's some people here that I haven't seen since last year. We've been home. It's been crazy. It's really nice to see the Hudson Valley represented here. I don't want to name everybody because this is such a big group, but I'm so happy to see a few of you. Hi, I'm David Mumper. If you don't know me and you're not from the Hudson Valley, I am a specialist with the Hudson Valley RBERN, and I've been really excited about the seal since we had the opportunity here in New York around 5 years ago to start offering it. So you've heard quite a bit, and it may be overwhelming. So we have a couple of questions already in the chat, and we'll get to those. And I think it looks like we do have a little time to hear some questions, some ideas, Shawnna, your idea is really crucial and something I wanted to highlight too. If there are districts near you who are ahead or behind, you know, teamwork and working together is the way that we get stuff done. And certainly in the Hudson Valley, I would say that we've had some great success, and people, I have a countless email threads saying, oh my God, this district was so helpful, they're so helpful. So you guys are really the experts here. And so that's nice to know. Let's just do a quick little teaching and learning activity, shall we? If you're following along on the screen, you'll know that there's a thumbs up or a down, or if you prefer, you can use the yes or the no. If you have those more readily available in your chat, it's a red and a green. And I think it looks like we've got 58 participants here. Let's see if we can get some all-in participation. Just click a yes or a no. Do you have currently in your district or in your high school a SEAL program? I'll give you just a minute to go in there and click yes or no. And that's in the participant window, guys. If you don't see it, you'll need to click participants at the bottom of your Zoom.
So I'm going to click the yes for green. Click on participants. You will see a green check mark next to mine, but we'll see which ones we have.
Mr. Mumper will know if you're cheating because I know a couple districts don't have it. And so I'm waiting for that little red no to come up. It's not to shame you. It's to let you know that we're here to help. Okay, there's a no. Good. Good. You get 1 point for a green, and you get 2 points for a red no, because it's full transparency here. So just another minute, guys. You're in the participant chat, and you can click yes or no whether or not your district has a seal. And I know some of you are not district reps. That's okay.
We've got some yeses in the chat as well.
Yep. Great. I like the differentiation. We've got some people using the emoji. We've got some people entering it in the chat. We've got some people starting this year. Congratulations. You are in the right group, and you are with the right people if you need any help, for sure. Okay, so step 2 in our activity. If you have the seal, in other words, if you clicked a green yes, or if you wrote yes in your chat, and now I invite you to just take a minute to unmute when you're ready, gather a thought and tell us, what is one bright spot? What is something that the people here who don't have a seal yet ought to know about something important this has brought to your district?
Can I share?
Please. Thank you, Janet.
Hi, David and Shawnna, thank you so much for this information. So one of the things that the Seal of Biliteracy has done for our community is an appreciation for multilingualism. So now, because of the Seal of Biliteracy, now the community is asking, the adult community is asking to learn Spanish. Our district is predominantly, has become Hispanic almost overnight. From a predominantly Black community, we are now over 80% Latino, but we still have a lot of African-American families that want to work with our Latino population, and they're asking to learn Spanish. And so we created an adult program to teach them Spanish in the evening.
Fabulous. I will build on that by highlighting that what I've seen, Janet, in districts that have the seal, particularly after the first year where it's like, let's just get this together, and then they calibrate it, it creates a kind of a buzz and a really powerful cultural, right, in the literal sense, a culture shift in the institution because of the way that we embrace such a wide range of folks and their languages. Thanks for sharing that. We've got about 5 minutes until we need to wrap up. And so let's take, if you'd like, and I please invite you to, another, well, I'll read one here. We have a couple down here. So Cecilia says, great recognition for ELLs. Those ELLs who've earned the seal feel really proud and appreciated for what they've done. It sounds like a no-brainer, but if you don't have the seal and you haven't seen that, it's pretty cool to know that you've got a student who may have spent the 12 years of his career always feeling like they were behind, right? And catching up, and I'm a little different, I'm a little odd, and here's a chance to be like, I'm amazing. And I have a credential that no one has, and that's really cool. Miggy says that we have some students who have gotten foreign language college credits. I assume, Miggy, you mean that this process has driven them towards doing that in a way that might not have been a pathway otherwise. That's great. That's really great.
David,
Uh-huh.
I could just add, I think for our district, or for me, just the level of the work that the students do for their projects. You know, like our first year doing it, there were more kind of cultural projects, but now kids have branched out to really choose topics that they're interested in or fields that they're going into, science research, medicine, engineering. So that's been a real highlight. But I also hope that the Seal of Biliteracy will encourage students to go into teaching languages, because I'm sure everyone will agree that finding French teachers and Italian teachers has been pretty tough. So I really hope that it will encourage kids to go into the teaching of languages.
Great point. Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa.
Thank you. I'm sure that anyone who said yes to this seal it will tell us it's a great program. It's a no-brainer. And once you start the heavy lifting, which isn't that heavy, it's a no-brainer. So thank you guys for sharing those strengths and the benefit it's had. So before we wrap up, I'd just like to invite you, if you don't have a program and you would like to, or you would like help, as per our slide here, just plug in your name, your district, and we'll make sure that a representative from an RBERN that's in your region reaches out so that we can support you. I personally, Kathy from the RBERN here, we work. I mean, you know, this is our job, as we've all said here. This is what the RBERNs do, and so whether it's the initial stages, whether it's calibrating a rubric, or whether it's just working with the BOCES in your community to find people to help you assess a low incidence language, we are happy to do that. So please, if you don't have a seal and you're a district or high school rep, shoot us an email or just plug it in here to the chat and we'll reach out and follow up with you to do so.
And I also want to recognize that Maria put a student reflection video in the chat, which I haven't seen yet, but from Ithaca. Thanks for sharing that, Maria.
Yeah, if you're following along on a phone, guys, and you don't see the chat, you might want to find it, because there's some really good evidence here. Or if you're in a district where, you know, we've heard a lot of people say, well, I want to do this, by AP doesn't, or we're not ready. All the evidence you need is in this conversation, and it's in there. It's pretty special. It's pretty neat.
So I want to thank my co-presenters, David and Shawnna, for putting this together. I hope you found it very useful. I also want to send out a special recognition to Shawnna Sweet and Maria Fenton, who were my co-conspirators in getting these modules and this guidance toolkit together. And a very special thank you to Elisa Alvarez, our fearless leader, who pushed them through and got them published. So we're thrilled to be able to have them on the site. I did want to mention, before we move on to the closing up this meeting, that we are currently working with the Puerto Rican Youth Leadership Institute, or PRILI, and we are going to have a presentation by them at our first December meeting. We are looking towards how we can help our PRILI students who do an advocacy project as part of their experience to use that towards the Seal of Biliteracy, so that they could be honored for their heritage language skills. So more information on that in December.